Hi, this is William Ramsey. The following interview was conducted May 19th between myself and researcher Jim Smith regarding what's known as the Smiley face killers. As of today, May 20th, at the time I posted this online, the bodies of Michael Doherty and Sriram Jayakumar have been found dead in water in Boston, Massachusetts. And also, the body of Daniel Chamberlain in La Crosse, Wisconsin has been found at the bottom of a bluff. Jim Smith and I discussed these missing individuals in the following interview. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. Tonight I have a returning guest, a very special guest. His name is Jim Smith. He is the proprietor or the overseer of Drowning Victims Smiley Face Cult on Twitter and Jim Smith on Facebook. He has been following this long cycle or series of disappearances and death of young men. So tonight, he has suggested we go over some of the more recent cases or events that have happened since March 31st, the last time we've taped. So, Jim, are you there?
I'm here, William. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for returning. I really appreciate it. We both have, and you primarily have been following so many events that have happened since we last talked, and I was hoping that we could just kind of go over them in detail. Can you kind of bring up some of the more recent cases or everything that you've been learning since our last conversation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just thanks again for having me on and talking about this subject that, is really important to you and I, because so many men continue to vanish in America. It's the same states. And gosh, just since the last time we talked, there's been multiple more young men who have either been abducted or vanished, and also who have been missing since the beginning of the year and have been found in water. Just like we speculated and tweeted and posted on Facebook, that as soon as people went missing, that it was suspicious and to watch it, and we were sadly correct.
And that was one of those cases was Jim Cross, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Jim Cross was one of them. Jim Cross in Oregon was a student at the University of, I believe he was in Eugene, Oregon, the University of Oregon. He was a 40-year-old man, a little older than normal, but he was a bartender, and he had gone back to college, and he vanished the same weekend as previous victims that we had talked about. Junebug Harris was his name, and all the way out in Maine, Bangor, Maine, who had vanished. And he was also found in the river up there, same weekend that Jim Cross vanished. And there was another man in Philadelphia named Lance James, who was a Marine veteran who disappeared out at a bar and was found in the river as well. All three men disappeared. All three men across the country were found the same way.
Right, and Junebug was Bangor, Maine. Lance James was outside of Philadelphia, correct?
Yes.
So yep. South. He was actually New Jersey, but really a suburb of Philly. And then Eugene, Oregon of Jim's Cross. And, of course, he was recently discovered in water. I think it was May 12th is close to the date, or if not the exact date, that his body was found. So I don't know, or nobody really knows. None of the information is really forthcoming about how long he was in that river, which I think would be vitally important.
Yeah, they had searched that river many times.
And that's an interesting thing, because not only about Cross was a thing that I had recently, and you probably had known, but another disappeared guy, this guy by the name of Barrett, he was discovered, but I had found that he was discovered in a river, but also in a place that had been like close to the bar he was at, that had been searched over and over and over again, and then he pops up again.
Brad Barrett?
Brad Barrett, right. Yeah, so I got some more recent information since you and I last talked, and I'm convinced that he was another victim in this series of victims. So,
absolutely. No doubt in my mind, William. In fact, a lot of evidence in that case. He walked right by his car, Brad Barrett, leaving the bar. Pennsylvania has been one of the hottest states for these. In fact, there's been multiple young men who have been abducted, many young men missing since the first of the year in Pennsylvania. And I mean, not just Dakota James, but Barrett shoe was found on an island in the middle of the river only. It was upstream from where he was eventually found, that had been searched many, many, many times. And not only that, but through the wonders of Facebook, we're able to connect Brad Barrett's disappearance and murder to another young man who's missing, named Gage Harkins, that directly links them on Facebook. And Gage has not been found.
Right, and he came out, he was close by. Barrett was out of Reading, Pennsylvania, and Gage Harkins, 17 years old, fits the type. Victim was out of Pottsville, which I don't know the exact mileage or distance, but my understanding is that's pretty close to Reading. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I believe it's like less than 30 miles.
Gotcha. And Gage Harkins has been missing since February 26th
Yes.
this year, so that's just a remarkable connection or correlation that nobody else other than you has really made. That Harkins is connected to Barrett.
Absolutely. I mean, we can connect them, through similar activities and friends.
And you've covered some of the other cases in Pennsylvania. Can you talk about some of these other cases other than Harkins, who was still missing? Barrett's been found.
Sure. Barrett and James were found deceased in the water, and we predicted both would be, as soon as they vanished, that they were probably connected and would be found in water, and sadly we were correct. There have been many bodies that have been pulled from the water in Pennsylvania, but there's only been a couple. A majority of the young men are still missing.
Right.
Stephen Whiteknight is 31 years old. He's missing. He was missing from January. His parents, every time they think he's going to be in the river, I'll just tell you that his parents are already, every time a body is found in the river, that they think that it's him. I just read an interview. There's a guy named Zach Sheets, who's 19 years old. He's also missing in Pennsylvania. Then there's Gage Harkins, we were just talking about, 17 years old. There were two men who were friends who vanished together at the same time. One is James Smith, he's 32. Other is Damian Staniszewski, he's 19. Vanished, gone. Two friends vanished together. They have not been found. Nathan Rossi Jr., 29 years old, still missing. Eladini Ali is 22 years old. He just went missing in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that was March.
And Shane Workman, he's 31 years old too, also just vanished.
Those last two you talked about, El Medini Alili and Shane Workman, those two kind of fit the profile of guys who were kind of seen in the afternoon by themselves. Shane Workman being out late at night, 10:30 on April 25th of 2017. They both fit the profile. So I expect that, the people who you listed, some of those will be found in water probably in the next 30 days.
If they're found at all.
Correct, if they're found at all. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, I expect Stephen Whiteknight to be found just because of so much stuff being in the news. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how many of those 8 people will be found.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, it's just fascinating about Dakota James, Brad Barrett, and these other cases. There's just so many things happening in Pennsylvania. I'm surprised the police haven't put, a general warning out to people. That's pretty surprising.
Yeah, I think political correctness plays a part in this. I say this a lot, that people are scared to speak out, but I tell you, there's been so many victims in Pennsylvania that a lot of people are talking and they're pushing their politicians. The James family has raised holy hell on the media and police since their son was murdered, and God bless them, but they see all the other men.
Yeah.
Who keep? I mean, it's so. This is growing.
They have an active Facebook page. They talk about the mayor and the chief of police. They're very aware of who they are, and I have information that I can't really divulge my source, but there are very important things happening beneath the surface around the Dakota James case. So I would recommend people who are listening to this podcast, if you want to kind of key into one of these cases, key into the Dakota James case and keep an eye on it, because I expect that very important information will be coming out probably in the next 30 to 60 days. So keep an eye on that. But,
yeah. It's been red hot in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, red hot. And that case isn't going away. The parents and the family are very curious. And, I think they're keeping an eye out on all kinds of new information, how they can tie this Dakota James to some of these other cases. They're definitely very on point. They're really focused on these cases.
Yeah, let's hope it gets through. I mean, again, there's been multiple men since Dakota James, and his family pretty early on saw our work on Facebook and Twitter and knew something was wrong. Which I think is a big part of making people understand what's going on, is when rational people are able to read enough of these cases, it makes a light goes off.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's really important. They kind of they don't know before it happens that there are other cases, and then they realize it and go, psh, that light goes off, and they kind of realize this is part of a pattern. Speaking of patterns, why don't we, we've covered Pennsylvania. Some very fast, very important things are happening in Boston, Massachusetts, and that area around Boston. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, Boston has been one of the worst cities for this the last couple of years. A lot of people know that. That's been another great city that their citizens see the pattern, because young man after young man after young man has been going missing. And, if this continued,
right.
I mean,
Kelleher was the early one that disappeared after a ball game, I believe, and then was found in the St. James or one of the rivers there. Is that correct? Do you remember Kelleher?
Yes, sir. So Michael Kelleher. Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm not.
I know. Kelleher.
Kelleher. He left the Boston Celtics game and was with friends and left to go get an Uber and walked over to a park, and I guess was having trouble getting an Uber and vanished. And very similar part of town to where Zach Marr was and other victims have and have been found. And man, the law enforcement and the media immediately jumped on this story when Michael vanished this time, because it's so fresh from the other young men who are being murdered and were being put in the St. Charles River. And that, the first day he was missing, they were looking in the exact same spot where Zach Marr was found, that they searched for every day. They searched the canal and the river for Michael Kelleher, and they didn't find anything. And then all of a sudden, after a couple weeks, right on Easter morning, they found his body. And I think him being found on Easter is a pretty big hint. Gives you a inside look at who the people are doing this. I mean, the misconception, let me just get this out of the way too. We were talking about this earlier. A lot of people who understand this and follow this, they think this is one person. Like, this is not one person. This is a lot of people doing this. One person cannot abduct a man. It's not possible. But besides Michael, after Michael was found in the river on Easter, there's been two more men outside of Boston. One is a Duke student. His name is Michael Doherty. He was leaving a party. This is just most recently. He has vanished. They found his shoes at a nearby lake in a wetland area. They found one of his shoes on one side and the other shoe on the other side, and that was last week. And he has still not been found. The police, there were 40 police officers helping search for him the day after he went missing.
And that's an oddity about these cases. So often you find that these guys have one shoe on or one shoe missing. Have you found that to be
left shoe?
Yeah, something strange about it. Doherty was 20 years old. He was a college student. He was in the city of Franklin, and he fits the profile. He was out late at 1:30 in the night, and that's when he was last seen, was 1:30 in the morning. But he's in the news every day. There's always a story about Doherty, so it's really remarkable that it's just the same profile. I mean, he's about 15, 20 minutes outside of downtown Boston.
Yeah, I mean, leaving a party, he's definitely been abducted. I mean, in my opinion, what do I know? But he has not been found. They have searched every day for him, and he is just another victim. I mean, there was another young man the day before Michael Daltrey in Massachusetts who also vanished. He's 26 years old. He was 26 miles away from Michael Daltrey, and they speculate that they found his body today. And I cannot confirm that, but they suspect they found his body today in the St. Charles River.
Right. So May 19th, 2017. There's a high possibility that Sri Ram Jayakumar, 26 years old, a guy of Indian ancestry, was found in the, was it the James River? Is that right?
Yes, St. James River.
Okay, so one's the Charles, one's the James, yeah. So that's also another kind of thing. It seems like there's a lot of people of Indian ancestry that seem to be more prevalent than in the past as victims. Do you find that to be the case?
I absolutely do. In fact, there's little groups of different type of victims. People think there's a misconception that these are all just white young college students. Right. Not true. It used to be that way. But since about 2012, a lot of the victims and other nationalities and races have been, you're popping up, starting to see more of them. But American Indian, Hindu, I guess that type, have been targeted. Good-looking, smart, college boy Indians. I mean, Rennie Joseph in Panama City is a perfect example. They still have not found him.
There was
Harsha Madula.
Right.
Right? Who was a very big case.
Yeah.
We talked about that on the last episode.
There's been some in England. There's a couple Manchester cases. Suvik Pal. Correct. Good-looking, kind of thin Indian kid. And then there was another one. I wish I could remember. Was it Abdul Kader Mahmood in Bristol? Yes. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. There was one more I wish I could remember in thing. But just like in the general thing is Arvind Sharma out of D.C., kind of a more recent case. I think that was 2010. He was actually a Nepalese American. But one that you know of, and I think you pointed me to, was Ambrose Monnier out of Chicago. Yes. That was last year, May 16th. 28 years old, walking out at night, smart, college educated. I think he was from somewhere in Africa, Ghanaian or something like that. But definitely fits. Found in water dead. You know, it's basically fits the same profile of victims. So,
African exchange students.
Yeah.
Smart, people who immigrated, like, Henry McCabe, right? He wasn't a student, but he was a very educated man from Africa.
Yeah, guy from Africa, that's right. Yep.
Correct. Been many young men of African heritage who are over here studying who have been found in rivers and they're abducted, and same with Indian. You're correct.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that was Sri Ram Jayakumar probably going to be found, or that was probably his body today. What do you think is going to happen with Doherty? Do you think he'll pop up or be found in water, or what? Do you have any predictions?
I sadly do. Yes, he's going to be found where they've been searching, probably exactly where his shoes were found, and when, I don't know. It's going to be within the next 2 weeks, maybe this weekend, possibly this weekend, but in the next 2 weeks, he's going to be found. Daltrey will absolutely be found.
That's fascinating, because you predicted, I think, to the day, the discovery of the body of Kelleher. I mean, if I
I did, sadly.
Yeah, so
sadly,
that was,
I suspected because of Easter. Yeah. Holidays are really big with these people. I mean, I don't think America. I know America does not understand how big this is, and how organized the people doing this are. I mean, if you don't believe me and you think that's crazy, just look at the cases by themselves. Look where they're at. Look at the dates and follow them like that. You can see it clearly.
Yeah, it's usually a big party, some type of group meeting, whether it's a Celtics game or some Where was Kelleher? He was at, was he at a hockey game? I don't remember.
No, Boston Celtics.
It was another
Big Boston Celtics fan.
Yeah, and there was another case that it was similar. Right, it was actually right where Kelleher disappeared. It was a guy by the name of William Hurley from 2009. Almost looks. If you look at a picture of William Hurley and a picture of Kelleher, they're almost like carbon copies. White guys, light eyes, skinny, but both walked out. Yeah, walked out of TD Gardens in Boston and just disappeared. And Hurley's a remarkable case, too, because he was on the phone. He was in a kind of area underneath the overpasses, and he was calling his girlfriend, and then he just disappeared. It's just one of those incredible cases. And then I think he was found in water like about 6 days later. Charles
in the harbor.
In the harbor, same like Kelleher. It's almost a carbon copy case. If you could compare the Hurley case to the Kelleher case, I think people would just be blown away. Their eyes would pop out of their heads. It's the same fact pattern. It's the same MO.
Every victim in Boston.
Well,
I mean, there's a good long list. I mean, it's pretty crazy. In the same part of town.
Right. So in that whole downtown center, but they're always found in the Charles River, which is weird. There's like one spot where they're all found, and that's not unusual in a lot of these cases. If you look at the lacrosse cases, the bodies are found in the same spot downriver. Even though they've been found, they're sent by dogs has been found upriver, so they're found in the same spot in there. And then it's almost the same in Bristol, where people get found on the kind of eastern shore of this lake. It's the same spots. And then there was the cases out of New York. I think it was McNeil, and I can't remember the other guy, but they were both found.
Anthony Urena.
So they were both found like in the same, like within 10 feet of each other. I think
like 15 years apart.
No. Same spot.
Insane.
Talking about Bristol, too, there was another case in Bristol, Jason Gurgul, Gurgul, same fact pattern, skinny guy, out drinking in the middle of the night, disappears, found in the...
on the way home.
But here's the interesting thing about Gurgul. I've been studying his case, is that he was found in there's this bar, Thekla, the same bar that Louis Ball came out of and disappeared. Somebody that was another Bristol case. But Gurgul's body was found in a very active area of downtown Bristol. Like literally, even at night, that place would be busy. It would be teeming with people coming out of bars. And so to think that he would have walked over there in the 2:30 at night, nobody saw him, and he just fell in and drowned, makes that case even more. The possibility of him drowning by himself more unlikely. Like nobody heard somebody splashing or calling for help. Yeah,
absolutely. No way.
The Jason Gurgul case. And they're actually, one of the interesting things about those cases in Bristol is you start seeing the same kind of phenomenon that's happening in Manchester, which is somebody putting people in the water, but they're happening independently. Like the cases, I've read these two articles about these cases in Bristol, Gurgul, Abdul Qadir Mahmood, Louis Ball, Deacon Wilkins, these ones that are very recent. And they talk about this, somebody pushing people in water, but they never reference larger cases. They don't see anything in Manchester or what's happening in the U.S. And they haven't figured out, Italy, they haven't taken the broader look yet. So eventually that's going to happen very shortly. I think they're going to see that there's a far broader, larger pattern.
There hasn't been a place anywhere on the internet for people to go see all of these stories. That's why I do and why I decided to do this, because there used to be websites, and that's how I learned about this. Footprints on the River's Edge, some other people who wrote books about this, and they've all basically stopped, but the murders kept going.
It's a good point.
And that's why I started doing this. There's a great Facebook group on Facebook. It's called Missing After a Night Out UK in Europe. And if you want to go and see all these cases, it's pretty easy to make your own mind up what's going on. They read the exact same way as the American cases. A lot of them are on the same day, around the same time that the people are being murdered here in America.
Yep, that's a great resource. It's that Facebook page. Missing Night Out after, was it Night Out at UK or Europe? Is that right?
In Europe, yeah.
I mean, when you look through in my research as well, it's interesting you made that point, is because these Facebook pages pop up once these guys go missing. So the family and friends put up a missing page, but they're all independent of each other. You know, Jason Gergel's missing, Kelleher's missing, but they don't put them. They don't see the larger context. It's unfortunate, but the resources of those Facebook pages for me has been very valuable. So, you know, if people are researching these cases, look for a Facebook page featuring the person who's missing. So the Doherty page is probably up there. Have you seen the Doherty Facebook page yet?
I haven't.
I haven't either.
I
don't even know what's there.
Sometimes I follow those. Sometimes I don't. They do get up very fast. I need to. You're right.
Well, there's definitely one. Dakota James is still active. That one is definitely still going on. So
yeah, there's many, and I've seen them a lot turn into justice for that person pages after they've been found.
Right. That's a good point. So the people are researching these. There's no question.
Yeah, I mean that's how people, you know, more people need to understand and be able to read this stuff. I mean, it's just, and you know, I tell you that one of the similar things about all these cases is that the families never get any closure. The police aren't a whole lot of help to them, and you know, simple questions go unanswered because no one's willing or brave enough to even ask questions.
It's an interesting point because they don't get closure, but if you look at almost, I would say, of all the cases I've looked at, almost every one of the family members says something suspicious happened. They were murdered. They didn't fall into it. It's a consistent element that they're saying. Whether Suvik Pal is a perfect example. He did not accept the police response. The father was like, "Come on, this is baloney." He met with misadventure, you know, something, and you know, that's what I found about the parents is they do not believe the police story, and they do not find closure. I always mention this one Facebook page in all of my interviews about SFK where one of the mothers is like talking to her dead son on Facebook for all of his birthdays and Christmas, you know, talking to her lost son. It's heartbreaking.
Lives are ruined.
Yeah, a son who died 10 years ago. You know, not somebody who died.
I see it all the time. I've met many mothers who have lost their son to this, and they're all in the same place. Their lives are ruined, and they didn't get any help from the police. They're very upset. They know that their son did not just have an accident, but they have nobody to help them. Nobody will listen.
They're kind of lost.
Part of why they're doing this.
Yeah, they're very independent and kind of like, yeah. There's just no route. There's no way out for them. You know, not anybody is really listening. But yeah, some of them don't want to talk too. I've actually run into in my research some of the parents. I mean, granted, I'm a very anonymous person, but not everybody knows of me. But a lot of parents, they're too freaked out, or they don't want to share any information about the loss of their kid. I found that to be the case.
Yeah. I would say overwhelming majority do though. And,
I would agree with that.
And they want help. I've met some great people who have been very supportive of me. I wouldn't even be doing this if it wasn't for people like that. And, you know, I want to help. I want people to get justice for what's happened. I mean, as Americans, this is unacceptable, what's happening. And it's unacceptable that the media is not doing their jobs and asking more questions. And, I mean, the stuff that we put up and posted, we have posted victims that have been found and predicting victims for 3 years in America. I mean, consistently. I'm surprised that more reporters aren't asking, how are you doing this? Right? How do you know these people are going to be found in the water? You know, this isn't a couple people. This is a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, your list is over 100, right?
More than that. More than that. I mean, there's we're probably easily over 150 in 3 years in America.
And then that's you researching for the last 3 years, and then people going back from that, you know, 2012 to 1997, 1996. So
I've seen the case in 1991.
Which one was that?
Oh gosh, it's actually in the Sobering Coincidence. I hate to give that book a plug, but there's a victim. I forget the gentleman's name. He was a Georgia Tech student. He was at a club, and he vanished, and he was found a couple of days later in the park, and at Midtown Park, a Piedmont Park in Atlanta.
Was it
2 days later.
Was that Fleischman? No.
Say that again?
It wasn't Fleischman, was it?
Give me a second.
I don't think it was Fleischman. Fleischman was later. I think Fleischman was that was 2007.
This is 1991. Most people call McNeil, victim number one, which is true.
Which I do. I've called him victim 0. Yeah, victim 1.
Well, that's what. Well, they said that more because of the book, right? That Gilbert sent again, and they know that there are other victims. They said, but for the book's purpose, right? The gentleman's name was Mike Adams.
Mike Adams, interesting.
And he was a Georgia Tech student, and he was out at a club, and I've actually interviewed somebody who was with him that night just recently, and he was found 2 days later in a pond, the opposite direction where he was. He was talking to a woman that night at the bar, and he wanted to be left alone from his friends that he was out with. And that I can confirm that, and this was not in sobering coincidence, I can confirm that his personal belongings were lined up all along that pond where he was found. 1991.
That's remarkable. Yeah, that seems to be a lot of the cases that happened in La Crosse, if I remember, their personal belongings were stacked up, or they were moved up to that the Indian chief or whatever it was, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's in Drowning Forensics, as in the book confirmed that in La Crosse, 5 separate victims' personal belongings were left at the Indian statue in Riverside Park at the feet. That's not conspiracy theory. That is a fact.
Right, and that's upriver from where they were last seen in the downtown part of La Crosse, and then their bodies are found downriver from the downtown La Crosse. So how did that all happen? How did that happen upriver? Yeah, and the dogs, like the scent dogs, all, triggered all in that area, that whole park.
Yeah, like a boat took them, or a car, they suspect. That's been written. It's interesting you bring up La Crosse, because by my count, there's been 18 victims in La Crosse. And the last victim was Shalim Augustine, which he was of Indian descent, and he was found upriver from where he was last seen, and it's out with people at bar. But there's a missing young man. There's a new missing man in La Crosse.
That's right.
Right now, same deal. Vanished. He hasn't been seen in over a week, and he's probably been abducted. We're waiting to see. I would bet you money that he is found in the river there in La Crosse. And the La Crosse murders are one of the original places, and people think that they stopped. They did not stop. All they did, they started their own river watch there, and people were watching the river at night because they couldn't stop these men being abducted there. And all that did was that the murderers just moved to the town next over in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So the murderers just moved there.
Interesting.
Only reason I even bring that up is because there's been a big push for a petition in Pittsburgh about putting cameras on the rivers, and how that's a noble thing, but the murders aren't going to stop. The murders will just move.
They'll move outside of the like any
cameras.
Yeah, if the serial killer is thinking, he wouldn't get caught on a CCTV kind of camera. The guy you're talking about in La Crosse, his name is Daniel Chamberlain.
Yes. 27, right?
Yeah, 27. I think I just read in here he's been found deceased.
What?
Yep, let me look up.
Where? Doesn't say?
Man's body found 20. He was at the base of Miller Bluff, north of Orlando. So,
yeah.
27-year-old dead today. What was this? When's this dated? Today.
Wow.
So he's been found. He's dead.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. Yeah, crazy.
It's been a couple mysterious young men being found at the Bluff this week. That's actually the third young man who has vanished. One was in Vermont. one was in Tennessee, and one was in La Crosse. This week, all by themselves,
well,
all vanished, all found at the bottom of a cliff or like a hill.
Right, and there was, I think it was White Church somewhere in La Crosse where two young men left bars and were found at the bottom of a quarry. Do you remember that story? So
yes,
not
I
that
did.
far out of La Crosse.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's an important, this is actually the case of this guy Chamberlain that just happened today, is an important aspect to look at, is that there may be other cases of people being murdered where they're not found in water, they're not found at all, or they're found at the bottom of a high object, whether it's a bluff, the top of a quarry, or you had that one case in the panhandle of Florida where a guy was found after supposedly falling off of a parking garage. You remember that one?
Yes, buddy. It's funny you should bring that up, but that was on the 2-year anniversary to the day of Rainey Joseph's, the Indian college student from Texas who was from New York. He was visiting Panama City 2 years to the day. They had another student. I can't think of his name right off the top, but he was found dead. He was drinking. He vanished. They found him at the bottom of a parking garage, but the police couldn't tell where he fell from. But he had trauma. And that's a big time theme. That's another misconception about the people doing this, that people think it's all drownings. Right. It is not. A majority are drownings, but in my opinion, there's also where they put people in their cars and they put them into rivers or ponds or lakes and they're hidden inside their cars. I see that many times. I see victims of falls where people are vanished, missing, and they find them at the bottom of a gorge. Same way, trauma, that's a common theme. Same deal, could be bars. I mean, Ithaca, New York had such a problem with the same thing in one of their gorges that they were saying that the kids were committing suicide. They were not. That they put up these nets to stop the bodies and the kids being found at the bottom. The murders continued. They've stopped since, but this is a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So go ahead. No, you go. Please go.
I was going to say that and hypothermia.
Right.
Is like the other one. Right. Those are the crimes that these people commit. Accidental drownings, putting victims in their submerged cars, and hypothermia and victims of falls. And so that young man in La Crosse was the third victim of a fall this week. I posted all 3 of those stories so you can make your mind up for yourself. But all of them say the same thing. Don't know how the person was found that way. Tragic death.
Right. Trying to remember where that place was where the 2 same guys fell off into the same quarry. God,
well, there's been a couple. There's one, you're remembering correct. There's in New York, I think, upstate New York is where I was just talking about.
It was either Minnesota or Wisconsin. Those were the Wisconsin cases. I can't remember.
One of those quarries, in Wisconsin, they found a smiley face graffiti there.
Yeah. So that graffiti pops up in so many different places. I'm convinced that there's more that people just crossed over and they never saw. So not all
people are not looking.
Yeah, they're just not looking for it.
Yeah. Because people take their word for the police and the media that it was a simple accident. Why would anybody be out there looking? There's so much more out there.
Right. So the 2 cases that were found at the bottom of a quarry were in Whitewater, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And that was Benjamin Footer. That was from 2012. And then there was another one and found in the same quarry, same young guy. His name was, Footer was F-U-D-E-R. God, what was the other guy's name? Wegener. Same quarry 1 year before. Mark Wegener. So that was May 30th, 2011. Wegener was lost. And then July 28th, 2012. Both found at the bottom of a quarry.
Yeah, the kid you brought up was Tyler Gilmore. He was a wrestler, and he was visiting Panama City. And on the 2-year anniversary of Rennie Joseph vanishing in Panama City, Tyler Gilmore disappeared, and he was found at the bottom of a parking garage. And they had no proof that he had fallen, but that's where he was found dead.
And then there was, what was it, Cameron Smith was found dead in Panama City Beach with a smiley face, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Cameron Smith, a month after Rennie Joseph vanished, on a month after 7 miles down the same road, Cameron Smith was also visiting Panama City. He was staying there. He vanished. He was found in the pond where he was camping. A week later, that pond was searched by divers multiple days before he was found. I went there and visited. I went where Rennie Joseph vanished from and was last seen, and I went where Cameron Smith was found dead. And I found a smiley face, a frowny face on a piece of boat where he was found. It was like a piece of boat in the water, a half a boat. It was just a wrecked piece of boat, and it had the word Astor written on the boat with a frowny face. No graffiti anywhere else. Anywhere else where he was found and where he was camping out right there. And the police blamed LSD for Rennie Joseph and Cameron Smith's deaths.
Interesting. And there's been other cases of LSD, some which you may not want to talk about, but I know of other cases where supposedly drugs were the causative factor, but and a second analysis, it just doesn't seem to be the case. That's
we can talk about that story. I don't mind. I mean, there was a quarry. There was a kid here in Georgia in a quarry, and they blamed LSD. He was like 2 weeks after Naz Muhammad.
Wow. Yeah.
Same deal. In fact, he posted pictures on his this victim who was found in the quarry here in Georgia on his Instagram the day he supposedly went missing. He was out with his friends supposedly at the quarry. They left him there supposedly. They searched that quarry for weeks. They had divers, dogs. They missed him. A week later, they found him in the quarry. LSD blamed.
So amazing. I mean, there needs to be a list of all of the sites or people who have been found after extensive searches. I think Kelleher was one of them. They were looking for him. They were looking for
almost all.
Yeah. Looking. Where is this person? And then all of a sudden, bam. And it'll be the same for Doherty outside of Boston. When he pops up in the next couple weeks, 3 weeks, they'll be like, man, we searched that 10 times. Same thing with Verrett. Searched that 300 times. Right behind the bar. People walk by it. Same thing with Booth out of Philadelphia. They're found in obvious places where somebody could see them.
Montgomery.
Yeah, Shane Montgomery.
Zach Marr.
3 feet of water. Oh, yeah. It's just the pattern is so vast. It's just shocking that police authorities cannot put out a warning or just say, hey, something's going on. It's just amazing.
I don't think they can. I think that's what we're battling here is that like your guest said that on your last interview, which was great, but him saying that it's almost like an order has been given out to the police departments to say the same thing. That is absolutely true. And I'm watching how the press and the media and the police act in these places. Right in Pittsburgh, they've had a lot of pressure on them, and they are very tight-lipped about any young man who's going missing right now, anybody that's found in the water right now. They're not giving out a whole lot of information. Yeah. Same with Boston.
Well, you can't find out the condition of the bodies. Like Dakota James, what was the condition of the body? Was he in water for 40 days? That's vitally important to the public. I believe that the cops are keeping tons of information back. I mean, it's at to the detriment of the public that this information is not divulged, because then people would realize, holy smokes, I got to tell my college student nephew to be careful. I got to tell my son to get an Uber home, before 11 or something, because it's happening. Yeah, it's happening. These kids.
No, it is, and that's why I do this. And I've told you and I've had this conversation is that, I used to, when I was younger, I used to think, no way. When I first learned about this, no way could one man abduct me. No way could a man. I'm too tough, right? Until I started reading stories about MMA fighters or some really tough dudes who were abducted and murdered by these people. And I mean, people have got to understand, if you have a kid who's college age, high school age, this is a different world, America we're living in right now. Because your kids are in big danger, and that's why the police aren't more public and they're not warning people. And my whole goal is to educate people by just posting information. You don't have to believe what I say. Make your own mind up, but at least take it seriously. And if you have family of young men or you know people and you know they go out and they're just being normal, regular kids, you've got to warn these people.
Yeah.
You cannot. It's so bad to be abducted by these people. This is the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst, no question. And you can get drugged and abducted. You don't have to be drugged. You can still get abducted. Don't get in a car with somebody you don't know. If you're anybody really, if you're a college-age male or female, really for that matter. But the females seem to have gotten the warning, like be careful. But the men are oblivious to any potential personal danger.
Even the police. Even the police in some ways, because when young men go missing and their families are pleading with them to put out a missing person report, the police don't even take it serious because they're like, oh, that's a man.
Right, good point.
Right? And that's like the most dangerous time there is for these people. And the police aren't even looking.
That's a good point. It's an excellent point. So, Jim Smith, this has been 45 minutes. I really appreciate you sharing your information with myself and the audience. We've got about 4 minutes left. Can you please tell the audience or the listening public about your websites and how they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, William. Thanks again for putting out the stuff. And I think everyone's really excited about your documentary that's coming out. You can follow me on Twitter at Drowning Victims, at Smiley Face Cult. I only post victims when they go missing that I think are involved. I also have Smiley Face Killers America on Facebook as my group.
Awesome. And you've got people are posting. I've noticed an upsurge in people sending you information or sending you stuff. So you're definitely like a center point for really awesome research and information. So I definitely recommend people go check out Jim Smith's stuff, follow him, follow these cases, and also warn your friends and family. There is definitely a danger taking place out in the United States and the UK and the world, really, about young men being abducted. So anything else you'd like to add, Jim Smith?
No, thank you for all your work. I'm very excited about your documentary. Like I was saying, I think the public wants to see and wants to learn what's going on, and I'm just excited. Thanks for putting together such a great piece of information and for people to see.
Well, I appreciate
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I've done some pretty intense research into case after case after case. So I think when people sit down and watch my documentary, they will walk away after watching it and say, something's happening. It won't be a vague kind of feeling of, yeah, maybe there's a phenomenon. They will know that young men are being abducted, they're being held and murdered. So I think they'll know without question that this phenomenon is taking place. So that was really my goal. And so I hope people are able to check it out when it comes out. I'm hoping to have it done within the next 7 days. Today is May 19th. So I definitely am just kind of looking at it over and over again, making sure that everything's very clear. So, Jim, I actually give kudos to you, and I really appreciate your help. You've really been an invaluable helper for me in looking at these cases and providing so much information that's not really been out there in books and other websites. So I definitely appreciate all of the work that you've done, Jim. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just glad to have somebody else who wants to teach people and show people that, as Americans, we don't have to accept this. This is not okay.
Well said. Well, that's a great way to finish. Jim Smith of Smiley Face Killers America. Thank you very much.
Thanks, William.
All right, bud. Appreciate it.